everybody, it's Guru Ameen here. To tell you a little bit about gear and what it was like when I took it, my first cycle. So, my first cycle happened to be when I was 15 years old. And to be quite honest with everybody, I was a very late mature. I took testosterone injections for the purpose of bodybuilding, but as a result, because I was so delayed in puberty, at 15 even, that the injections actually are what triggered the full onset of puberty. And my first cycle was test, and test by itself. It was testibionate, and I started off with 200 milligrams, and I went up to 400 milligrams, and then went back down to 2 in a time period of 9 weeks. Then after that 9-week period, I did a little bit of ACG. It didn't even take much because I was still very young, and I went clean for a while. And then I did my second cycle, which was test and DECA, and I did them both together, similar way, but this time the cycle was 12 weeks. The difference between the gear then and what I took then and what I took now. Okay, this is going to sound a little bit strange, but I just want you guys to know the real truth of everything. I was naturally bodybuilding. I was in military school my freshman and sophomore year. I was in Fort Union Military Academy. And that's when I started working out, lifting weights. I went into the school kind of being a little bit of a delinquent. My stepfather raised me, was a Marine Colonel, retired Marine Colonel, and my mother thought it was a good idea for me to go to military school because I wasn't really acting the way that they wanted me to. And so they sent me to this boarding military school, and I got hazed really bad. No, but it wasn't unusual. The hazing wasn't unusual because I had been hazed my whole life for looking awkward or, being a smartass sometimes, not really knowing I was being a smartass. But this was a boarding school, and it was a military school, so they took it. It went to the extreme. I was the only person with a Middle Eastern name that had ever really been to that school, ever. It was in the 80s, so it was pretty much black and white. The school was pretty much black and white, and the uniform was very similar to the Confederate uniform. It was a really good school, but it was just a difficult time for me. So I came home and I saw my brother was lifting weights, cross-training for crew. He was rowing crew. And I saw what it was doing to him, and I saw how strong he was, and I realized that I needed to use what he was doing, this weightlifting stuff, to make myself stronger, or I'm going to just keep getting beat up. So I went back to military school. I first went for a summer, and then I went for freshman and sophomore year. In the summer I got hazed really bad, and the freshman year I got hazed really bad, but I was working out every day. I came home my freshman year. I continued to work out in the summer, or the summer before my sophomore year, and then I went back to military school my sophomore year, and I worked out hard in military school. I gained probably about 44 pounds naturally with a fairly low body fat, because I've always had a very low body fat, being very, very skinny and very, very small growing up. I was always at the extreme end of everything, so I was the smallest kid in school. It was an easy target to get picked on because I had glasses. I had a laser surgery, that's why I don't have glasses anymore. These are sunglasses, but I had glasses. And I came home from school my sophomore year. I was pretty strong. I was T-bar rowing 3 plates. I mean, you have to understand, guys, I started lifting weights. I was just about 103 pounds, literally. And I worked my way up to about 146 naturally in about, let's say 2.5 years. I was young, but by today's standards, at my height, I had reached the natural maximum limit. I didn't know there was no natural maximum limit back then, because people didn't really want to talk about the drugs back then. It wasn't even known to be bad. Steroids weren't even known to be a bad thing, it's crazy the way things have changed. But because the way things have changed, it's caused a whole new spectrum of drugs. So when I came home my sophomore year from school, I talked to one of my friends that I grew up with in the area where I lived, and asked him about steroids. Somebody in my military school, one of the teachers had asked me if I was using steroids, and it was a word I had never heard before. I had never heard the word before. I never even heard of it. Forget reading it. I'd never read it, never heard of it. It was a new word, and I'm a nerd, and I wanted to find out what was he even talking about, And so I found out what he was talking about. I didn't find out in military school. Nobody would tell me. Some of the guys in the locker room, they told me that it's this stuff people take to get big. That's all they said. They didn't say anything else about it. They just said it's this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's great. There's stuff out there you can take to get big. And I was like, is it like this protein powder? Because I had my mother send me protein powder and oatmeal and peanut butter and all that stuff. No. They said, no, it's not like that. It's pills you get from the doctor. So that stuck in my mind, pills you get from the doctor. Pills you get from the doctor that make you big? What is that? You go to the doctor and he's going to give you pills to get bigger? Why didn't they give me these pills? I need to get bigger. I'm way smaller than everybody else. I should have taken them. That's what's going through my mind. So then I get home sophomore year and I ask, my closest friend about these steroids. Man, what are these steroids? How do you get them? Who do I get them from? Lo and behold, we just happened to be growing up in our area. Where I grew up was in Virginia, in Alexandria, called Watergate at Landmark in Alexandria, Virginia. And one of the kids that used to pick on our group and take our football and stuff like that and rough us up a little, then he was one of the older kids. Lo and behold, he had all these steroids. So, and my friend Patrick, he knew it. So he goes, John has all these steroids. So I went and saw John, and he sat me down. He was huge. He was about 5'9". I would say he was probably every bit of 270, and he was one of the bigger people I'd ever seen. He wasn't shredded or anything. He was just huge, big neck. Guy had a huge neck, and you could tell he was just strong. And I was actually friends with his younger brother, who didn't lift weights or anything, and I didn't even know that John was in town from Nebraska, where he lives. So he had got a divorce with his wife, and he was at his grandmother's house where I knew his brother Larry. So I went over to, my friend Patrick took me over to Grandma's house, where John and later on Larry was living. At the time, Larry wasn't there. And John shows me these big needles and all these bottles and these pills, and, they're all pharmaceutical. Everything that he had was, legit pharmaceutical, which was, what I'd never seen anything other than that, so I didn't know. And he broke out a 1.5 inch 22 gauge needle and drew up a cc of 2 cc's of B12 and shot it in his glute. And he says, this is how easy it is. It doesn't hurt, I promise. If you don't want to try that stuff, you can try the vitamin B12. It's just a vitamin. It's not a hormone. And if you're okay with the shot, then I could talk to you about the other stuff. And he wasn't selling me anything. He was just being very informative. He didn't care it wasn't there was no discussion of money at all, as a matter of fact. It wasn't even money was even involved, okay? There was It was just learn about this is what you asked about. You wanted to know about steroids. This guy, you didn't know, but here he is. He knows about steroids, and boom. So I took a shot of B12 in my left glute. I'll never forget it. He aspirated, slapped it, just to make it skin tight. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it because of the way he did it. I didn't feel it. And that was one of the big things, because the needle was an 1.5 inch needle. Now, look, I know we've gotten past that. We do backloading now, and 5/8 and 1/2 inch needles and stuff like that. But this was 1988, okay, and that's just what it was. And so I took a shot of testosterone right then, and I didn't even have to think about it. After the B12 didn't hurt, I did the shot of testosterone on the other side. He showed me a real bottles. Actually, it was an entire 6-pack of 30cc Winstrol V from Winthrop. This is how long ago it was. The company Winthrop. This is before Upjohn. Okay, this is the American veterinarian Winstrol V. I'm going to see if I can get a clip and put it in there from Winthrop. Okay, and he had Equipoise. Okay, from Solvay was the company, and he had it from Squibb too. He had it from both, and it was a 50cc bottle with the red top. It was American also. He had Steris testosterone in multiple forms: cypionate, propionate, enanthate, and suspension. He had a 30cc bottles of suspension, all from Steris was the company. Everything was legit. There was no UGLs at then. There were some people I found out later, but from reading books, the Underground Steroid Handbook and stuff, some people faked these things. They would fake these pharmaceuticals, these real pharmaceuticals. And lo and behold, through conversations, I found out that this is before it was illegal, guys. So I don't want anyone to think otherwise. I'm not trying to hide anything. Everybody already knows I have a felony for this shit. But this is before it was illegal. He happened to be the largest dealer. I mean, these guys were dealing with Dan Duchaine Circle and above and beyond them. They were doing really great advanced stuff of stealing and covering up the books directly from pharmaceutical distribution centers, where they would take out large quantities of, crates with the way this end up, like crates like that, and they would take it out, and they were able to do it because their friends own the company. They own so in America, the way that drugs go is there's a distribution center, and like all of the main drug companies send it to that place, and then they send it to your pharmacies. And there's a few different distribution places, usually in each state, like Walgreens and CVS may work with some different ones. Other companies may work with other ones, but in general, that's how they come. And the main drug companies send it to them. They were stealing out of that place, so they had access to everything that was there. And then they would claim the theft on it and get the insurance money and get more bottles. Or one time they claimed that a bottle, a box smashed, and so they got, a few thousand bottles for that. And I was so close to John that I was on the inside. And I really thought, after taking this stuff, I really thought it was the greatest thing ever. I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not even lying. Steroids changed my whole life. In a good way. To this day, still in a good way. I can't say that. There were some moments where I was a little overly aggressive as a teenager, but, if your kid's smoking weed and he's overly aggressive, you blame it on that. It's kids are overly aggressive, period. And it was kind of like a doorway into being someone that I couldn't be.